afternoon, and thanks for joining this extended stream of This Is Now. I'm Dylan Ancheta in the H&N Digital Center. We're continuing our coverage of the breaking news that we learned of within the last hour and a half. A grand jury in New York City has voted to indict former President Donald Trump. Now, of course, this is a monumental move, as this is the first time criminal charges have ever been pursued against a former U.S. president. We just got this new report from our NBC affiliate, Alice Barr. Take a listen.
Good evening. 3 sources are confirming to NBC News that a grand jury in New York has indicted former President Trump. At this point, the indictment is still under seal. Important to remember that grand juries operate in secret by design. So until that document is unsealed, we don't know exactly what he has been charged with. What we do know is that the charge or charges all stem from a hush money investigation that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has been leading, and this all relates to adult film star Stormy Daniels, that she was paid hush money during the 2016 presidential campaign. Daniels claims she had an affair with Mr. Trump a decade earlier in 2006, though he has repeatedly denied that claim. 2 sources also telling NBC News the former president's attorneys have been notified of his indictment. At this point, it is not clear when he would actually turn himself in and exactly what that process would look like. Whether we're going to see a mugshot, the steps that are going to take place once he has a chance to surrender to authorities in New York. Mr. Trump's former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, testified about the hush money scheme to the grand jury. And he said in a statement today, quote, "I do take solace in validating the adage that no one is above the law, not even a former president." And this will be the first ever criminal case against a former president. Mr. Trump, of course, has repeatedly called this politically motivated. He has slammed this entire investigation from the start. He's also called Michael Cohen, who's really at the heart of this prosecution here. He has called him a liar. And we have to remember this all comes in the context that former President Trump has announced he is running for president again in 2024. Polls show that he is the Republican frontrunner, and certainly this is going to loom large as we head into that election season. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Alice, for that report. Once again, these details are just emerging. We learned of it a short time ago. I can tell you a little bit more insight into that report that you just saw there. Former President Trump was expected to surrender to authorities next week, though the details are still being worked out, according to a person who's familiar with the matter. In bringing the charges, the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is embracing an unusual case that had been investigated by 2 previous sets of prosecutors, both of which declined to take the politically explosive step of seeking Trump's indictment. So there's a lot going on here, and as I mentioned previously in This Is Now, we are gathering some new reaction from lawmakers, including Hawaii Representative Jill Tokuda, who is in Washington, D.C. Today, Representative Tokuda issued the following statement saying, quote, "The rule of law is pillar of any democracy, and that means that no one, including former presidents, are above the law. The indictment of a former president is unprecedented in our nation's history, yet so is the harm that Trump caused the country and to the office of the president. I have faith in our legal system and our courts to hear this case fairly and deliver justice." Again, that was a direct quote and a statement from Hawaii's Representative Jill Tokuda. Now, a short time ago, Senator Ted Cruz also tweeted out his statement saying, quote, the Democrat Party's hatred for Donald Trump knows no bounds. The substance of this political persecution is utter garbage. This is completely unprecedented and is a catastrophic escalation in the weaponization of the justice system. So again, the big news of the day there, former President Donald Trump has been indicted by a New York grand jury. And in fact, take a live look right here. This is a look in New York City where all of the action is going down. This is the District Attorney General General's Office, County of New York. This has been the hot shot, so to speak, of a lot of this investigation building up to today's indictment. This is a live look provided by one of our affiliates there. So we are still working to gather more information. We've reached out to the Hawaii Republican Party to see if they want to weigh in on that, and we are still awaiting a response from them. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and replay some of your top stories of the day, including a deadly military helicopter crash in Kentucky. Here's the latest on that.
The Army provided preliminary details of the deadly crash of 2 helicopters during a Wednesday night training mission.
At approximately 10 p.m. last night, 2 of our Black Hawk helicopters were involved in a crash during a planned training flight in Cadiz, Kentucky, that resulted in the death of all 9 service members aboard the aircraft.
Officials say the medical evacuation helicopters belonging to the 101st Airborne Division crashed in a field near a residential area about 30 miles northwest of Fort Campbell. There were no reports of injuries on the ground.
We'll immediately initiate an investigation to help us understand what caused this crash in order to prevent accidents like this from happening again.
Last month, 2 National Guard members were killed when their Black Hawk went down along an Alabama highway. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin issued a statement saying he's saddened by this latest tragic loss, adding that he's working to make sure troops and families receive the care that they need in the wake of this accident. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear paid tribute to the fallen soldiers.
We are blessed to live in the freest country in the history of planet Earth, but we must remember that that freedom relies on those who are willing to serve, some of which pay the ultimate price.
One of the helicopters had 5 soldiers on board, and the other had 4. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
And for more on this now, we bring in HNN's Washington correspondent, Brendan Cullerton. Brendan, thanks for joining us here on This Is Now. Following up on this Black Hawk helicopter crash, what else is the Pentagon saying?
Well, Dylan, we have very limited information from the Pentagon from the briefing today. They say what we know is around 10 o'clock last night, 2 Black Hawk helicopters crashed into each other doing night flight training. So they were training, routine training. It was planned for night flying. They don't know much else about what caused the crash. We do know that an aircraft safety crew is coming from Fort Rucker in Alabama. They're investigating that today. That's what the Pentagon tells us. That's all they know right now, and any more details are going to come after that investigation.
Got it. A lot to keep an eye on there. Let's move now to another train derailment, this time in Minnesota. Now, in Washington, lawmakers are focusing on rail safety. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that train derailment in Minnesota was, again, very dangerous. This train was carrying ethanol. It actually caught on fire, and it forced an evacuation. As far as what's happening in D.C. today, Ohio Representative Bill Johnson put forth the Rail Safety Act with other representatives from Ohio. It would do a few things like increasing inspections. It would ask the Federal Rail Administration to kind of rework the standards, things like train speed, track safety, the amount of cars, track length. It would also increase funding for first responders to deal with hazardous materials, and it would increase penalties for going against those regulations.
Got it. And of course, the people in Mississippi, they are still reeling from the devastating tornadoes there. We do know that President Biden is heading there tomorrow to assess the damage. What kind of federal assistance is the state expecting?
And the president going with the First Lady to tour a few counties there. The big move the president made was actually on Sunday when he issued a disaster proclamation. And what that does is it allows FEMA to provide funds for those areas. And they do it on a county-by-county basis based on how much damage there is. So that's one of the things the president is doing tomorrow, is he will be assessing on a county-by-county basis just how much help they need, how much federal assistance they need, and how much that differs on a location-to-location basis. Different areas will get different amounts of help from the federal government.
HNN's Washington correspondent Brendan Cullerton. Brendan, thank you so much for joining us here on This Is Now.
In Nashville, a citywide vigil was held for the 6 victims of Monday's mass school shooting. First Lady Jill Biden was on hand to lay flowers at the ever-growing memorial outside the Covenant School. Meanwhile, the actions of the school's teachers are being praised for preventing more bloodshed. None of the victims in the massacre were inside of a classroom at the time. Campus officials, led by the head of school, Catherine Coons, are said to have been adamant about training staff on how to respond to an active shooter. She was on a Zoom call when the first shots were heard. Officials assume she rushed out to protect her students when she was shot and killed in a school hallway.
Meanwhile, hundreds of school children, teens, and parents gathered at the Tennessee Capitol today to protest for tighter gun control laws. You can see in this video, protesters lined the hallways of the building and chanted at the state's Republican-dominated legislature as they filed in to begin taking up bills for the first time since the shooting. Many were chanting, quote, "Save the children." In Washington, D.C., Republicans showed little appetite to pass more gun restrictions. Rep. Tim Burchett, a Tennessee Republican, said Congress isn't going to fix the problems that led to Monday's shooting.
Some bars and nightclubs in Honolulu may soon be required to keep a life-saving overdose drug on hand. This comes as Narcan was approved for over-the-counter sales by the FDA yesterday. Casey Lund has more from Chinatown.
Aloha from Chinatown. And we're talking about Bill 28 that was introduced in the Honolulu City Council that would require Narcan, naloxone, to be kept at bars and nightclubs, those high-risk venues. We want to talk to the City Council member that introduced that bill, Tyler Dos Santos Tam. Walk us through what that measure kind of entails and how you see it playing out.
Well, we're seeing opioid overdoses all around the country and here in Hawaii as well. And we also know that alcohol and drugs don't mix, and alcohol can exacerbate reactions. So we want to make sure that bars and nightclubs, in the same way that they have defibrillators, in the same way that they have first aid kits and fire extinguishers.
Quick question, two things. One, who would pay for this? Would this fall on those businesses? And secondly, how soon could we see this if it makes its way through the City Council?
So we're hoping to work with the Department of Health, the Liquor Commission, as well as private, nonprofit groups that work in healthcare to try to provide the initial doses to these bars. It lasts for about 3 years from manufacture and, would have to be replaced after. But again, this is about keeping their patrons safe. This is about reducing the risk to those businesses as well if something negative were to happen to one of their patrons.
And again, real quick, how quickly could we see this actually go into effect if it passes?
So the goal is to get it in effect by January 1st of 2024. This gives the bars some time to get trained, to get this into these venues, and hopefully starting next year, we'll keep our patrons safe.
Yeah. And while we have Jim Ireland here, the director of Honolulu EMS, Jim, I want to ask you how you feel about that bill, and if those employees, if you're confident that they're able to use this. Kind of walk us through how they would use this and how you feel about that measure.
Well, I guess firstly, it's a great bill, and I think it's going to save lives. Narcan, naloxone is easy to use, and it's relatively harmless, meaning if I give it to you right now and you don't need it, or you don't have a true narcotic overdose and we use this on you, it's not going to hurt you. And I think that's one of the reasons the FDA made it so widely available. Two reasons. One is it's benign. It won't hurt you if you get it when you're not supposed to. And also because what we're seeing with this epidemic of narcotic overdoses. And unfortunately, we're seeing it here in Hawaii as well, including fentanyl, which is pretty scary.
Jim Ireland, Director of Honolulu EMS, appreciate your time today. A reminder that this is still prescription only. Over-the-counter sales could happen with that FDA approval as soon as late this summer, but you can still get this without a prescription from Hawaii Health Harm and Reduction. We have all the information to do that on our website at hawaiinewsnow.com. For now, we'll send things back into the studio.
Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi continues his town hall series with tonight's meeting in Waipahu. Blangiardi and other city officials will be at the Filipino Community Center on Moku'ola Street at 6:30. They say the town halls serve as a way to hear community concerns directly from the public, as well as share information about upcoming projects. This is the third of 11 town halls to be held around Oahu.
A town hall will be held tonight for community members affected by the 2021 Red Hill fuel spill. It comes as 3 active duty service members launch legal action against the government due to their claims of adverse medical issues suffered following consumption of the tainted water. Tonight's meeting is being being hosted by the law firms involved. It takes place at the AM Vets West Oahu Veterans Center on Iroquois Boulevard in Ewa Beach. It starts at 6 p.m.
A major setback for women's health care on Maui. The island's only private obstetrics doctors will deliver their final babies this fall. Our Chelsea Davis has more on the need for specialized physicians and the challenges they face.
Hi, Ash. Dr. Stacy Ammerman has been an obstetrics and gynecology physician for 12 years. Her entire career has been on Maui. Dr. Christy Takamoto is also an OBGYN physician, practicing on Maui for 16 years. Together, they started Maui-Lani Physicians and Surgeons 10 years ago.
We recently decided as a group to stop doing obstetrics, which is the delivering of babies and taking care of pregnant women. It's something that we have loved doing. We felt super privileged to be part of the community.
It's been a really hard decision to make.
They say several factors have gone into this difficult decision. One, physician recruitment. Few doctors are willing to move to Maui where the cost of living is high and pay is lower than other states.
It's challenging for people to move their family here, if they have children and don't have other family to help care for them.
They'll take care of the patients they currently have, but will stop this critical service in October. After that, Maui women who don't have Kaiser insurance will only have one prenatal care option, a federally qualified healthcare center.
By us not practicing OB anymore, it is unfortunately taking away choice from the patient. So their only choice, assuming they have non-Kaiser insurance, is to go to Malama Ikeola.
They say a solution is multifaceted.
Reimbursement from insurance companies tends to be low in Hawaii, and specifically to obstetrics.
Larger hospital systems on Oahu considering coming in and starting an OB hospitalist program.
Maui Memorial Medical Center officials say it's looking into hiring laborists and working to renew its partnership with the University of Hawaii to bring in OB residents. Construction for a new hospital in West Maui is also underway, but has been stalled because of financial issues. Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
New data from the state's red light camera enforcement program. Nearly 1,800 citations have been issued by 5 cameras along Vineyard Boulevard and Pali Highway since the first camera went live in November. The most active intersection was Vineyard and Liliha Street, which has so far seen over 700 red light runners alone. Fines for violators start at $97. Meanwhile, the state is warning drivers that it isn't just rolling through an intersection that will catch the camera's eye. A test run at a camera on Baratania and Pi'ikoi found the vast majority of violations were due to drivers not stopping completely before making a right turn on red.
New details on the city's $43 million plan to renovate the Neil Blaisdell campus. The arena, exhibition center, and concert hall will each undergo a makeover. They'll include improvements to the facility's electrical infrastructure, exhibition hall suites, plumbing, AC, and backstage areas. Some work is already underway, but parts of the campus will soon be completely shut down.
We've been very lucky to work with general contractors that are able to follow our direction to say, oh, like yesterday was Bonnie Raitt, you cannot work. It might take a little bit longer, but by closing down the buildings and just going flat out, we'll be able to do it faster.
Under current plans, the arena will be closed from May to November, the exhibition hall from June through August, and the concert hall will close its doors for a year starting in July. Events will be relocated to other venues, such as the Waikiki Shell.
Russia has arrested a U.S. journalist and accused him of spying. Nicole D'Antonio has more details from the White House.
Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gerskovich was taken out of a Moscow courthouse after being charged as a spy and ordered to be held until at least the end of May.
We are immensely concerned over Russia's announcement that it has detained a U.S. citizen journalist. We're in contact, as I said, with the Wall Street Journal about this situation, and we have not yet heard back from the Russian Foreign Ministry Affairs.
Gerskovich was arrested hundreds of miles east of Moscow. Russia's security forces accused him of acting on behalf of the American government to collect information about the Russian military-industrial complex. The Wall Street Journal says it vehemently denies the allegations from the FSB and seeks the immediate release of our trusted and dedicated reporter Evan Gershkovich. Yaroslav Shershigov says Gershkovich had recently interviewed him, and they discussed Yevgeny Prigozhin, the owner of the infamous Wagner group of mercenaries fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Prigozhin was asked about the detained American journalist and said he knew nothing about it, but joked that people could search the torture chamber in his home. The White House says it is working to free Gershkovich. It also condemned Russia for detaining another American citizen.
Detaining Americans, as my colleague said, my NSC colleague said, is a tactic Russia has used for a long time. It is nothing new. When you think about Paul Whelan, you think about Trevor Reed, they were taken prior to the prior administration, under the prior administration. And so, as you all know, we're still working very hard to bring Paul home.
The administration says it is unsafe for Americans to be in Russia at this time and urged U.S. citizens to leave the country as soon as possible. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, the White House.
So this is this afternoon, right? Pop-up showers maybe here, maybe there, but most of the rain, if anything, will come over Kauai. And the threat for rainfall remains on Kauai tomorrow, but things dry up for the state for going into the weekend. However, starting on Sunday, another juicy disturbance comes in, and it's going to pull in moisture from the northeast. Hawaii Island expected to get most of the rain from this oncoming disturbance, likely to linger Sunday, Monday, before it leaves on Tuesday. And then after that, we're in for some trade showers. So today, we got to get through these scattered showers. We might get some heavy rainfall for Kauai. Pop-up showers otherwise drier for Friday and Saturday with trade-ins coming back. That's going to be nice. And then that other disturbance comes in Sunday and Monday with more rain.
All right, let's take a look at what the internet is talking about. A mystery man scaled a Miami drawbridge earlier this week, shocking eyewitnesses. Now, as Jeannie Moose reports, a nearby resident caught it all on video.
Climbing a drawbridge to draw attention to himself, a mystery man clung to the metal grid as ships and boats passed by Miami's Brickell Bridge in the upright position.
What the is wrong with this dude?
Derek Newball shot this video from his rooftop as the climber reached the top.
And I go like, this can't be real. It has to be insane.
As he inched his way back down, some viewers freaked. I am having a panic attack watching this. My palms are literally sweating.
There was a boat passing by and they started clapping.
Police warn the hot Miami sun makes stunts like this even more dangerous by heating up the steel and concrete surface. When he was halfway down, the bridge began to come down and his arm went up in a fist pump. And when he started waving, it was as if he were conducting the horn section. When the bridge was level enough, the climber stood upright and ran. By the time police arrived, he was gone. At the exact moment Derek stopped recording, the climber briefly got down on the ground.
He did like a push-up and just vanished.
This isn't Manhattan's 59th Street Bridge that Simon and Garfunkel sang about, but the Brickell Bridge climber did seem to be feeling groovy enough to take a bow. Jeannie Moose, CNN. All is groovy. New York.
And check this out. A Honolulu man was left stunned after his parking bill came out to be close to $11,000 in downtown Honolulu. Now, Dennis Kawano said he received the bill after spending 2 minutes inside the Residences at Bishop Place parking structure. He told a security guard who jokingly replied, "Well, what's the problem?" They eventually let him off without paying the fee. Parking management said there was a network error and it has since been fixed. Now, Dennis was on the way to dropping off his wife when it happened Wednesday morning.